Szanowni Państwo,
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor, also a great joy to welcome you tonight here in Łódź in EC1 at the 8th Freedom Game. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
to szczególnie miłe przywitać.
It's especially nice to welcome all of you here, you who are the live audience, but it's also nice to welcome all the viewers who are observing us in the channels of our partners on Facebook and through other media. My name is Olga Brzezińska, and I will be happy to accompany you for the next 3 days in this fascinating and inspiring adventure we have prepared for you. The venue we are meeting today is a special place. It's a symbol of renewal. It's the facility of the former power station of Łódź, and now there is this powerful institution of culture. This is an open and hospitable space which allows people to spend time in a smart and a nice way. And this is what the Freedom Games are. This is an agora. This is a place of meeting, exchange of good practices for people who operate in different public spheres. So we are ahead of 3 days of discussions about the key challenges we're facing today. Very detailed agenda of the Freedom Games is looking at different values, at the foundations. We are looking at the liberal democracy, the state of law, and the open society. The axis of the reflection is not only demarcated by the modernity, it's also our conviction that the form of our social life requires care and engagement. We have invited excellent experts, agents of change, to talk about the methods of communicating, discussing our common issues, how to face challenges that do not have any borders, how to deal with the aging societies, how to combat inequalities, and no parallel between the real and virtual world, and about the need of the new social model, how to prepare to the reconstruction after the pandemic and the accompanying economic crisis. For the next 3 days here in Łódź, we will focus our debates on future. So there will be 4 stages. Some 300 guests will participate, and we would like to invite you to get involved in this discussion, in this open debate about the shape of the new social contract. Now I would like to give the floor to Błażej Lenkowski, who is the president of the Liberty Foundation and the director of the Freedom Games. Let's welcome him very warmly. Thank you very much, Olga. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you very warmly on behalf of the Liberty Foundation. We are just starting the 3-day event full of interesting discussions on the Freedom Games, the discussions that are of a different dimension than the traditional formulas of this event organized in the past. If pandemic has generated something good, the transformation of the Freedom Games from the traditional event, now we have a 3-day medial event, and we are creating as if television program. So I would like to welcome very warmly the viewers of the Onet, Gazeta Wyborcza, and Tok FM radio who are watching and listening to us today. EC1 is an open space where we will welcome all people who would like to follow this event. So also I would like to invite you to join us tomorrow and on Sunday. This year, the main topic of the Freedom Games is the new social contract. We have concluded that the difficult time of pandemic and the scale of dysfunctional political conflict in Poland should be the catalyst of some changes. This is the time when we should stop and consider, think very seriously about our society and also about our community. Whether we like it or not, we are the community. It doesn't matter which political choices we follow. We live in a country which is called Poland. And many processes that are being initiated right now will require a long-term change and a political consensus to make sure we can face them. So it's good time to start talking about it. Firstly, these are the climate changes. We have to look after the environment. We have to overcome smog. We have to stop the industrial production, farming. So all these changes will affect us, especially when we're talking about the power generation sector. So when we look at Poland, everything has to be changed. We have to focus on renewable sources or atomic energies. We have to be very consistent, and we have to have this consensus among politicians. If we are unable to introduce long-term policies, if we look at the land Justice Party, we will maybe this party in a dozen years or so will take Poland out of the European Union, and we will face a lot of political and economic problems. And then there's another change, demographic change. Always during the history of the world, we have the societies of young people, of working people. And for the first time in Poland and in Europe, there is a new social model where senior citizens are dominating. So it will have consequences to economy and politics. Our democracy will be dominated by senior people who will determine the shape of our community, and also they will depend on this shrinking group of young people who will have to work for the seniors. It's a huge challenge, so we need to develop new dimensions of multi-generational solidarity. We have to provide new services for seniors. In Poland, we have been forced to use the narration, and the government, the leading party is leading this specific discussion. Social policy doesn't work in Poland. In Poland, we need geriatric assistance, but it's like in the gray zones, and the actions are very ad hoc. We have to do a lot about nurseries, kindergartens, care for seniors. And we know that the Polish health service is not working very well. We have witnessed it during the pandemic in particular. So we have to develop very efficient public and social services. The third area is the technological challenges. The left wing likes to talk about inequality instead of noticing how efficiently capitalism combats poverty. So we can see a lot of inequalities, and they will accelerate, they will develop in the next few years. And the social division will look as follows. So there will be a group of people who will follow this technological change. They will work in highly developed companies. They will be in the avant-garde of the change. And then there will be the rest of the society who will not be able to catch up. So the state has to face this challenge. We need education for seniors. It's a huge change. Technology is neither good or bad. It provides bigger opportunities to do good or evil things, depending who is using it. Technology is also about geopolitics. We should emphasize that, unfortunately, Poland is still a subcontractor. It's not a decision-making country. We are not a decision-making country. So technologies we are using will determine about the political system in our country. So on the one hand, we have to take care of the technological diversification, and we also have to look at the barriers between technology and the governments. Liberty likes this aspect, and of And it's what we have to look at for the future is the China, is the big Chinese brother. I think it's the biggest challenge to the European system of values. The Chinese model will not be enforced. It won't be the tanks that will bring this model. It can be imposed due to technological dominance that will lead to the regime. And the geopolitics. I don't know for how long we will still have good relations. The Polish transformation system was based on the consensus as regards the foreign policy. We have to get back to this tendency. The United States are using this more and more isolating policy. So our links here in Europe have to be stronger, and our partnership with the United States should be also a priority. We also have to look what is happening in the eastern border in Belarus. The opposition is imprisoned. So the aircraft with Protasiewicz was hijacked. We will also have a speaker later on, Kryscina Cimanouska, who will tell us about her problems in the Belarus. Andrzej Poczobut, he's an activist who was imprisoned in March together with Angelika Borys, and he faces the charge of 12 years imprisonment. Here we are looking at the freedom during our event. So I would like to stress that we remember Andrzej Poczobut, we think about him, we think about his future, and we do hope that very soon this difficult situation will come to its end and he will be able to join us in the next edition of the Freedom Games. The fifth element of the social contract is rooted in the liberal ideas. It should be of key importance to all the players on the political scene. Liberalism is good. For many years we heard about the crisis of Poland. Kaczyński was often mentioning the impossibilism. The pandemic and the government have shown that although there are problems in Poland, Poland is still strong. So our lifestyle can be affected, and the free market can be also interfered with. I'm afraid that the pandemic has shown to many politicians, not only in Poland, how strong the states can be and how easily, against the law, the state can impose their will on them. It's very dangerous to all sides of the political conflict because democracy is changing and the temptation is huge. So there is the temptation of using the state against the rules of democracy. So that's why we have to introduce the liberal security that will defend our rights and freedoms. It's a key challenge, systemic challenge for us for the future, and it should be the key element of the new social contract. So maybe after the period of the dominance of the law and justice parties, we will need a new system. The Freedom Games is a big group of wonderful people who co-create this event. So I would like to thank you all very warmly. I would like to thank the 300 panelists, all the organizational staffs, voluntaries, subcontractors. For the 3 days, we will have 200 people who will be working for the event to go on. And it wouldn't be possible without our partners, the city of Łódź, the Łódź centers of events, who are our strategic partners. Naumann, Open Society Foundation, Google and Microsoft are also the partners of the Freedom Games this year. Co-organizer European Liberal Forum. Supporting partners Pressbus, Orange, City Project, Amazon and IKEA. The contents-based partners, this list will be really long. Republican Foundation, Lithuania Free Market Institute, Economic Institute of Social Studies, Civic Institute, Poland Foundation, Strategy 250, Forum of Civic Development, Respublika, For Liberty, DELA Think Tank, European Climate Foundation, Łódź Women's Track, Inspiring Girls, protests, campaign against homophobics, Polish Strike of Women. Our partners of Dialogue are Atlas Network and Pfizer. Publications, literackie publication and Copernicus Press, Onet, Gazeta Wyborska, TOK FM, magazyn do czytania, and Toya TV station. This year we also have an accompanying event, artwork, organized by Invedo, Blue Rank, High Commerce, Spinner Ups, and Basecamp is the artworks partner. At the end, I would like to thank very warmly to my small team, the main team, who have been involved in the Freedom Games. They were working very fast for the last weeks and days. I know that you had to work for 12, 16 hours a day. It was really very difficult, but I think that the agenda is extremely interesting. I would like to thank Asia Głodek, Olga Łabędowicz, Agnieszka Durmaj, Natalia Banaś, Marcin Malecki, Stanisław Roszczyk, Zuzanna Antczak, all the experts, program expert, and Magdalena Baranin. And, of course, I would like to thank Leszek Jażdżewski. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you to the 3-day intellectual feast. Thank you very much.
Dziękuję, panie
Thank you, Błażej. Thank you. CEO, I can announce the Freedom Games as officially opened. For the last year and a half, we got used to hybrid meetings, and this event is not going to be any different. We are going to have face-to-face and online meetings, but we'll talk more about it in a while. Błażej listed many names, many partners who support this year's event, and would like to thank them. Now I would like to invite representatives of our important partners. First and foremost, I would like to invite the mayor of the city of Łódź, Ms. Hanna Zdanowska. We'll give the floor to our partners, but in order to look longer at them, I would like to invite Detmar Doering from the Friedrich Neumann's Foundation for Freedom, Ms. Anna Klimczuk, Head of Communication from Microsoft, and we do hope to see Marta Poślad from Google, who got stuck in a traffic jam on the way here. Madam Mayor, the floor is yours. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome our distinguished guests in Łódź, my beloved city. Welcome to the Freedom Games. Welcome to EC1. As we have just heard, it has been created to share the energy for the city's inhabitants and to rise the energy inside us, in our outlook, in our mindset, dialogue with our co-citizens, the citizens of the world, because we share this world. This is a unique place, a place where experts, artists, politicians, leaders, and business people meet to discuss the most important aspects for our times. The pandemic has changed everything and has changed Freedom Games as well. That is why I am very happy to enjoy participating in this event in person, but owing to multimedia transmissions and broadcasts, we can feel dozens and hundreds of people worldwide participating in the event together with us. The atmosphere of this place has not changed. It's full of energy and courage to formulate opinions. The temperature of discussion and the power of arguments have not changed either. Today, we have to reconsider the relations between the state and the citizens, the employer and employees, and our personal relationships. The new social contract is a must. Personally, I'm looking forward to what I am currently absorbed by because of our future, namely everything related to environmental issues, climate protection, or discussions devoted to green cities. There is no alternative to environmental protection, fight for better climate, clean air, and clean water. I do hope that each of you will leave Łódź enriched with unforgettable vision and experience, supported by knowledge, the power of arguments, and even quite substantive argument. An inspiring reflection will help us become the pioneers of new changes. The new days are coming. I hope they are going to be better. This is what I wish for to all of us. Thank you very much for the opportunity to meet you here. I'm going to be with you throughout the whole Freedom Games, so I'm sure we are going to meet for informal conversations or during the debates. So I'm inviting you to participate in it, and I'm looking forward to it very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. And now, as announced, according to the hybrid form, I would like to invite you to listen to Heinrich from Open Society Foundations.
Dear colleagues and friends, I'm sorry that I cannot be with you in person or at least live on screen, but I'm very happy that I'm able to submit this brief video message. The Open Society Foundations is a long and proud funder and supporter of the Freedom Games, and we are very happy to also be able to support this year's innovative series of debates and workshops. At a time when democratic debate is not a given and polarization is on the rise, not only in Poland and elsewhere, I think finding this fora for critical engagement and discussions is more important than ever. I've been asked to briefly reflect on the conference theme of a new social contract, which is, I think, a very fitting concept for you to discuss over the next coming days. And in preparing for my brief input, I was reflecting on what's actually new and what should be new about this social contract. And I guess a new social contract should be one which is up for the new challenges facing us in the 21st century, but I would argue still based on the open and democratic and liberal model of the past. Now, you might think that this is a no-brainer, but I'm not sure. Looking at the fallout, the political fallouts of the COVID crisis, I see that many people are calling for strong states and that autocratic models which provide safety and security, but actually they do away with the openness and the engagement and the participation of liberal models, and might be on the rise. This is not only in Asia, but also in Europe. If you look at many countries, civil liberties have been restricted. It's harder to demonstrate. State surveillance has increased, not only in public health, but also in tracking people's behavior. The role of digital tools is growing. So we are facing definitely a new, strong state. And the question is it a state which is strong and democratic, but strong and intrusive? And I think the jury is still out. So I think what I would argue for is that we need a new contract, which is not coercive like the one in China, but based on open and democratic principles. And I hope that the next coming days will allow you to identify that. Now, if I look at the conference program, obviously the term of liberalism features very strongly. So the question is, what answers can liberalism and liberal thought give to this new social contract? And again, looking at the corona pandemic, which I think is really a game changer for all of us, I think it has shown, has maybe accelerated the realization among many liberal thinkers that thinking about freedom, as you know, in the freedom is a key concept in German liberal thought, freedom only as my individual freedom and maybe only related to the economic sphere is definitely insufficient. If you look at the way the pandemic affects all of us, my freedom and my behavior clearly affects everybody else's. So we need to think about collective freedoms. Only then can we think about really liberal answers to this pandemic and to many other crises facing in the 21st century. Just to illustrate with one example, if many of my fellow citizens here in Germany, where I live, decide not to get vaccinated, the freedoms of, for example, my younger son, who attends school and is too young to be vaccinated, might be severely restricted. He might not be able to go to certain spaces. He might have to continue wearing a mask, and he might even have to homeschool because school is closed. So our freedoms are interconnected, and we need answers which safeguard those freedoms of our individuals as well as the collective at the same time. Now, the COVID pandemic, you might argue, is on its way out. So what comes after? Many governments say we want to build back, maybe build better, but build back. And I'm not sure whether this will move us in the direction of a new social contract. Does it seem that the COVID crisis was just a rehearsal of a new era, of an era with many more risks and crises and interruptions? I feel that's the case, and to pick just the most obvious one, this is the climate crisis. It affects all of us already now. It's of course, and it will accelerate. And think about the climate crisis and freedom. I see a similar pattern as with COVID. A purely individual-based freedom concept of liberalism doesn't get us far in addressing the climate crisis because it's a collective crisis. It requires collective action. To put it simply, my carbon-emitting behavior now impacts the freedoms other people can have now, and particularly the freedoms our children and future generations will have. In the path-breaking ruling, the German Constitutional Court has acknowledged this interconnection actually very squarely and has deducted the duty of the German government to do more against climate, much more against climate change now, in order to preserve at least some of the freedoms of future generations. So it is clear that all our freedoms are increasingly interconnected and need to be addressed in an interconnected way. What does this mean? This means there are no easy answers. Looking for solutions will require always looking for new arguments, also considering the impacts of the proposals, particularly on those who don't have a voice or a seat at the table. It requires an open society approach to the new crisis, and that can be the basis of building a new social contract. And I hope at this conference you can identify some of the solutions, and we'll come up with some of these proposals on how to strengthen our open societies in the light of the challenges that lie ahead of us. I wish you all the best. Goodbye.
Okay, a round of applause for this message and for the greetings. And now I'd like to give the floor to Detmar Doering from the Friedrich Neumann's Foundation for Freedom.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to say how happy I am to be here physically, in person. To be here physically, in person, and not like last year, somehow confined to a little square on a screen, which worked well, but probably not good enough, not as good as being here physically. And I think this is also a freedom experience. Speaking of the topic of freedom, I think I'm not pessimistic, but rather realistic. I say we have seen better times for the development of freedom. It used to flourish after 89, and now we see the rise of authoritarianism, the COVID regime. We see identity politics not only on the right, we always expected it, but also on the left, which I thought once was the standard bearer of some sort of societal tolerance. And that's not really good news. We see regress. And I think time doesn't allow me to enumerate all reasons why this is so. I don't just pick out one. Perhaps we, as liberal-minded persons, somehow forgot how to communicate the inspirational side of freedom. Freedom is something that can be experienced personally. The world of freedom ideas is exciting. It's a discovery process, to paraphrase the classical liberal thinker Friedrich von Hayek. And the source of it are free discussion, exchange, ideas, and creativity of the individual is a search of solutions for problems in our society. Now, today we see a kind of debate where...
Это обернулось бурей возмущения. Власти ответили жестокими разгонами и репрессиями. За последний год в Беларуси более 35 тысяч человек были задержаны и прошли через тюрьмы. В стране возбудили свыше 4 тысяч уголовных дел по статьям терроризм и экстремизм. По состоянию на 8 сентября в Беларуси признаны политическими заключенными 659 человек. Я могла бы подробно рассказать о том, как в Беларуси увольняют бастующих рабочих, как отчисляют студентов, замеченных в акциях протеста, как арестовывают рядовых белорусов просто за то, что они подписаны в соцсетях на неправильные чаты и телеграм-каналы. Наконец, как угрожают спортсменам, подписавшим открытое письмо против репрессий. Но это печальная история, о которой вы и так наслышаны. Сегодня же я хочу рассказать о том, почему белорусы не сдаются. И это великая история маленьких побед, за которыми стоят волонтеры, активисты и другие представители гражданского общества. Беларусь давно стала страной, где люди не рассчитывают на государство, а полагаются друг на друга. Весной 2013 года на Европу обрушился мощный циклон Хавьер. Пострадали и жители Беларуси. Мы уже давно не видели такого мощного ветра, который сбивал людей с ног. В результате дороги парализовало из-за сугробов. Многих белорусов тогда затопило, засыпало снегом и отрезало от мира. Люди начали координироваться, привозить друг другу питьевую воду, помогать. Спустя 7 лет ситуация повторилась. Летом 2020 года в Минске произошла авария, из-за которой многие люди остались без воды. Волонтеры начали привозить воду минчанам. Когда же началась эпидемия коронавируса, белорусские власти долго отрицали его опасность, не стали вводить карантин, не помогали врачам. Белорусам пришлось спасаться самим. Так появилась волонтерская организация, которая привозила врачам респираторы и одежду, перчатки и другие средства защиты. Президентские выборы наглядно показали, как белорусы умеют кооперироваться, объединяться, помогать друг другу. На выборах действовали независимые наблюдатели, которые объединились благодаря цифровым решениям, разработанным командой «Голос». Именно команда «Голоса» подсчитала итоги голосования и выявила многочисленные факты нарушений, которые удалось зафиксировать с помощью фотографий с избирательных участков. После выборов, когда многие белорусы вынуждены были покинуть страну, появились и другие организации и фонды. Например, проект BuyHelp начал оплачивать штрафы белорусам, задержанным за участие в акциях протеста. За это BuyHelp признали экстремистами. Фонд медицинской солидарности помог врачам, уволенным за выражение своей гражданской позиции. Фонд культурной солидарности – актерам, музыкантам, писателям, пострадавшим от произвола властей. Фонд спортивной солидарности – олимпийским призерам и рядовым спортсменам. Появление огромного количества волонтеров и организаций стало ответом на то, что государству нет дела до людей. Если это расходится с позиции руководства страны, власти закрывают глаза на существующие проблемы. Прошлым летом белорусы ответили власти гражданскими инициативами. В ответ власти ввели репрессивные меры и объявили вне закона все фонды и организации, чьи цели расходятся с их видением будущего. Но будущее нельзя остановить. Оно не спрашивает разрешения, чтобы открыть дверь. И если бы чиновники Беларуси пошли навстречу гражданскому обществу, в стране давно состоялся бы мирный транзит власти. К сожалению, этого не произошло. И десятки тысяч людей оказались за границей, вынуждены были покинуть Беларусь, опасаясь репрессий, как и я. Поэтому сегодня от лица всех белорусов, вынужденно оказавшихся за границей, я призываю мировое сообщество оказать помощь гражданскому обществу Беларуси, поддержать тех белорусов, кто оказался за рубежом без документов и не знает, что их ждет в будущем, поддержать белорусов, которые не могут найти работу за рубежом, поддержать наши инициативы и проекты, направленные на помощь пострадавшим. Наш мир стал очень маленьким, границы прозрачными. И сегодня не бывает чужой беды. Не повторяйте ошибок белорусских чиновников, не закрывайте глаза на проблемы Беларуси. Мы, белорусский народ, нуждаемся в вашей солидарности.
Szanowni Państwo,
Ladies and gentlemen, we talk about large ideas, look at their evolution and the conditions in which they function. We'll talk about the idea of liberalism in a while. Leszek Jerzewski, editor-in-chief of Liberty, who asks a question on what liberalism we need. Leszek Jerzewski, the floor is yours. Hello, Freedom Games. Are you there? Because in the writers' forums, they write that nobody has come, so I'm just checking. For those who would like to use the headsets to listen to the interpretation on the left-hand side, we'll have the debate in Polish, but the next meetings will be in English. This is not only a live meeting, as Błażej said, but I have to say it's a great pleasure to meet you in person. Thanks a lot for surviving the year and a half of social distance and maintaining the necessary sanitary rules for being with us. Thank you very much, and I'm really looking forward to the rest of Freedom Games. Okay, so welcome to the Freedom Games, and let the games begin. What kind of liberalism we need? I'm supposed to talk about liberalism, but I haven't expected so many people to be interested in the subject matter, especially that I don't have any special support. Let me start with saying what liberalism definitely isn't. It is not denying that human activity causes global warming. It's not telling people that they're mischievous. It is not a fig leaf for large corporations who avoid paying taxes where they earn money. Liberalism does not claim that equality in marriage and non-discriminating the LGBT people is a substitute topic, but liberalism does not allow for censorship in the name of some prejudices of the left or of the right. Liberalism is aware that capitalism is imperfect and requires continuous improvement, but will never accept a statement that it's better to substitute market economy with a form of socialism. Should I end? Okay, keep going, you say. Let me share an observation with you. Perhaps you have heard, but the molar has 3 or 4 canals. It's not going to be introduction to dentistry. I have heard about it in the swimming pool. I keep on learning. At the swimming pool, an elderly woman working there was telling to her colleague that her granddaughter is not allowed for reimbursed dental treatment. And since the molar has 3 canals, it costs over 1,500 zlotys. I checked it. In Łódź, it costs around 1,200,000 under the microscope. It can be cheaper, but next time when I go to the swimming pool, I will recommend to the elderly lady to send her granddaughter to another clinic and to check for other offers. But I'm not sure whether it's going to change anything, if it's only 500 zlotys. Natasha Naumann, in the biographies of migrant orphans, interviewed people whose parents emigrated for many years, which meant between 4 or 27 years they didn't have contact with either of their parents. Let me quote 2 excerpts from the conversations. When my mom worked abroad, we could afford different presents, as previously it had been difficult. We had difficult financial situation and had to be aware of it, together with my brother, that our parents couldn't afford some things, that the birthdays or holidays were modest, and we got used to it. And then, when my mom started to leave, we could afford something more, buying gifts or some food, and we didn't have to save on it. And another excerpt. As a teenager, I was writing my diary. 2 weeks ago, when I was doing some cleaning, I found it and read some stuff I had written there. Some were funny, and I remembered that the father was leaving, and I already missed him. During the debate between Tusk and Trzaskowski, during Kampolska, Paweł from Kościan in the Wielkopolska region asked a question. I would like to greet the region. Paweł asked the following question. Let me quote it. Perhaps some of you were at the debate. I come from a small town, which I'm proud of. I love Kościan in a certain way. That is why the lot of the town is dear to my heart. But the problem that applies to such villages and towns, it's related to brain draining. Young people emigrate to cities, and after studies, they do not come back to their villages, to their towns or countryside. It's a huge problem. We lack such people. How to convince them to come back to their homes, how to convince them to establish families there and build societies, how to make small towns or villages become a real life alternative. Paweł was applauded by the audience. I spent 4 days there, and it was a fantastic experience. Similar energy was there as here. They were young people there, rebellious, and they had no mercy, even for the most distinguished panelists. So he was applauded, but from the former prime minister, he learned it's worth loving your small fatherland, and working for the society does not contradict returning to the ancestors' graves. But I'm not really sure it was what he really meant. I'm quoting this story because I don't live in a bubble, in an ivory tower. I live in Łódź. Sometimes I have to carry heavy loads to the third floors, visit the same restaurants, and walk along the same streets as other people in Łódź. Łódź is nice because it does not make people far from reality, as it happens in Warsaw. I'm proud of it, and I would like to greet Łódź. That is why I think such opinions are no foreign to you, that it's not something that you only read in newspapers. When I listen to people who talk about their struggle with the reality or about real tragedies, I wonder whether liberalism has something to offer to them apart from the famous change your job, take a loan. Kill it and leave the city, referring to the famous film. Is it the only piece of advice we can offer to them? I don't have a magic wand, but Prime Minister Morawiecki is a specialist in promising wonders. But we should start saying that it's not possible to reach some towns or villages in times other than early morning or late evening, and do we really live in the times when everybody needs a car to get to school or work? In some areas there is no internet. That is why the propaganda of the Polish public television is so efficient. Very often the pandemic exposed poor teaching of languages and lack of access to computers. It is not that in the province people only reach for more benefits. They do understand the meaning of work. They work very hard on their farms, in their warehouses, and in their companies. They don't dream about the state to organize their life. They only want to see the promised opportunity, promised but not delivered. Liberalism must not deviate from the social and economic reality. The inhabitants of towns and villages constitute 1/3 of the Polish citizens. If we want to be fair in the freedom of media and the rule of law, the vision of the future Poland needs to take their needs into advice. Equal chances must not be an empty spell. Liberalism must no longer entail popularity among the enlightened elites because they turn away from it as well. Liberal sensitivity should be rooted in the humans who are or aspire to be the middle class. According to recent IBRIS survey, it can be 70% of Poles. They can have something to lose, and we must prove that liberals are capable of fighting for their values and for their interests. We need reference to the aspiration of people who crave for development, who don't want to be doomed for vegetation somewhere at the margin, It is not about addressing them, but we have to give them the voice and not repeat what Andrzej Bursa said. I don't give a shit about small towns, but quote a more contemporary artist whom you might know. The face and head from a small town's style, small towns, I love you. Does it ring a bell? Yeah, Dawid Podsiadło. It can be a real hit. Liberalism is a concept that always says that the human should be the goal and not the means to reach the objective. It always places an individual and freedom at the first place. Show me your enemies and I will tell you who you are. It also works when we talk about ideas. The system of authority, of power, is not open to liberalism. It's not friendly to liberalism. Those who rule violate our basic rules protected by the Constitution. They claim there are some rights that must not be violated, and that is why they fight liberalism. Democracy without the law and without independent people who interpret it turns into a caricature. In a non-liberal system, the authorities breach the law and are proud of it. When there is no rule of law, or there is only naked power of the police people who are cruel towards those who fight. The ministers who spend the money for the colleagues. The president who introduces the curfew to block access to the migrants at the border. What can you do? They laugh at your face. We can answer calmly. Liberal rules of the game, once restored, will protect even you against revenge. But you will not get away with it. The law will still be the law. I would like to bow in front of everything who protest against anti-liberal activities of our current authorities. Owing to your persistence, Warsaw is still not Budapest. Your fight seemed helpless, and you may feel certain failure because we have terrible law which was created by fundamentalists. We voted LGBT-free zones and violated the Constitutional Court. But it's only a part of the list. But you created the language of opposition. Millions of Poles noticed that they are not alone in their anger. For the first time, the Constitution and the liberal values have become so deeply rooted in the social awareness. Polish women, especially, become liberalized, but the politics does not follow it. It wouldn't have happened but for a determination of hundreds of people who didn't want to surrender, save for you and your courage. It is the courage to go alone to the square to protest against breaching the law. The courage is to wear a rainbow bag in a small town. The courage is to criticize the popular opinions. The courage is to admit you made a mistake. Liberalism needs to be courageous, just like you are. Those who are not brave enough to express their own mindset will not be followed. People respect consequences and know that being true to your mindset may mean failure. Not only the future, but also the public opinion promotes the courageous ones. From the election point of view, it might not be popular, but all of a sudden it may turn out that it will lead to victory. I address these words to the opposition leaders. Stop explaining everything. Stop luring. No more compromise. This authority, by the decision of its unit called the Constitutional Court, divided the inhabitants into two categories: those who can decide about themselves, and those who are deprived of it. One decision changed the life of millions of Polish women. They nationalized female bodies, and they heard from the Polish women, from the bravest girls who shouted out in the street, no. Can we get used to the catho-national apartheid in Poland? We'll not get used to the division into the rulers, and the subjected majority will fight in the parliament, on the internet, in the streets, and will never surrender. Liberalism has to be courageous to let women decide about their bodies, and schools without fundamentalism, humane treatment of migrants, and legalized we must plant trees, we must protect forests against being cut down, and animals against cruelty. Liberalism needs to ensure conditions for those who create jobs or works of art. Private property is the foundation of independence. Individuals eager to risk deserve our highest respect. Liberalism needs to support citizens, efficient public services, modern school, available health services, and extended public transport. Liberalism needs to support, and social policy should help people who need it to stand independently, but they should not depend on the goodwill of the politicians. Liberalism must not close their eyes and turn their head against those who are homeless or handicapped. Liberalism needs to ensure for the new generation, for those who are not able to vote yet or who have not been born yet, the planet as a good place to live. The state that will not collapse under the burden of debts, where people are forced to emigrate. Liberalism that will let people run their companies instead of understanding the rules that are changed for the fourth time in the year. Liberalism does not treat state as the milking cow, because farmers take care of their cows, and liberalism will not name any propaganda and national interest, but it will protect creative people. Andrzej Sapkowski, a writer from Łódź, wrote, we can wear Chinese clothes, drive Czech cars, cook Spanish tomatoes and Norwegian salmons in German potatoes, in German pots, but we should have our own culture. These are the ideas of young generation, although up to 40 years of age, and they are the majority of those who vote. They will not be convinced by simply the language which is against the law and justice. the politicians who think that people around 60 are somewhere behind, that they do not follow, are wrong. Do you agree with me? Tusk, Hołownia, Kosiniak-Kamysz believe in those who vote. They really understand. Also those who don't live, who live outside Warsaw and who live in small towns. Courage means the ability to admit you made a mistake. Liberalism is constant verification of your mindset. John Maynard Keynes, a liberal, wrote, "I change my mind when facts change. And you?" Leszek Kołakowski wrote, "Among all civilizations, only the European civilization managed to challenge its deepest foundations, and that is why it was so successful." Liberals answer to the left, who know everything, that there is no perfect vision of the world which we should implement at all costs. That's why an open debate is the best way to reach it. It involves opinions that can be discouraging or repelling. The only position towards the people who do not share our opinions should be persuasion and not excluding them or treating them with disregard. The sense of confidence which was experienced by liberals at the end of the 1990s, interpreted by those who learned the title from Isayama's essays, was accompanied by the Western elites when they made intervention in Iraq and when they used the taxpayers' money to save the banks and to save themselves against the consequences.
And this backlash, this protest arrived very quickly. They were angry with the golden parachutes. They were feeding both the right and left-wing populism. So these are huge tectonic movements, the events between 2003, 2008. Brexit and the victory of Trump in the United States have reduced the trust into the current model of democracy. In Poland, liberals are having a mission, and they have implemented one vision that was the right vision for them. If somebody didn't understand this vision, it meant that either this person was stupid or was manipulating politics. I personally think that liberals did something good. It's that they took Poland towards democracy through the Red Sea, despite the condition of the economy. And at the time in Poland, nobody knew democracy. But they took us to this promised land of the Western institutions. So if they hadn't have this trust in the rightness of these actions, this wouldn't have happened. So I do hope that when we have the future, the free Poland, we will see the monuments of Wałęsa, Balcerowicz, Michnik. They really have deserved it. It doesn't matter that some of us do not like their opinions. This politics of imitations, as Ivan Krastev was saying, ended when Poland joined the European Union. And this is probably the biggest failure of the third Poland's Republic. The elites didn't manage to introduce the liberal values into the society. It was decided that democracy, following the rules, will be something that we will learn ourselves. But it's not possible to learn it ourselves in the primary school. So democracy was to be taught by the schools, and of course the values and the paradigm. The values have been determined to be something that the church is specialist in. So in the we could see attacks of young people, such as the ones in Białystok. So we brought them up ourselves. They are following the Catholic Church when they attack protesters during such protests as the one in Białystok. So to end my speech, I would like to say about 15-year-old Malala Yousafzai, who is leading a campaign of free access to education in Pakistan. So 12 years ago, in a coach, a Taliban attacker shot her in her head. She survived, but she was very sick. Then I would like to refer to her speech. Dear sisters and brothers, I am not against anyone. I'm not here to talk against the Taliban or any other terrorists, to take my personal revenge. I have come here to tell you about the right to education to every child. I would like daughters and sons of all terrorists, extremists, and Talibans to be educated. I do not feel any hatred. Even I have no hatred towards the Taliban who had shot me. Extremists have been afraid of books and pens. The power of education frightens them. They are afraid of women. The power of women's voice frightens them. That is why they killed 14 students during the attack in Kweta recently. That's why they killed teachers and carers of polio patients. That is why every day they are placing bombs in schools, because they are afraid of the change and equality that should be present in our societies. I remember then in my school there was a boy, and the journalist asked that boy, why Talibans are against education? He answered in a very simple way. He pointed at his book. A Taliban doesn't know what the book says. He can't read it. Especially now, when the fundamentalists are taking education from our children, we have to remember that our enemies cannot be the parents who have different views. Ignorance is a problem, and we can tackle it by using education and culture. Thank you.